Today isn't about inspiration alone. It's about authorship. Each of us is living a story, most of it inherited, reactive, largely unexamined. Once in a while, someone decides to write it on purpose. Some of you know Becky through her years of facilitation work, some through her art, some through gatherings born in the Being movement. What distinguishes Becky is not what she does, it's that she chose to define who she is deliberately. She lives from a personal declaration, what some call the document, not a vision board or affirmations, a decision about identity, especially when circumstances push back. This body of work traces to the influence of Steve Hardison, but lineage alone doesn't make it real. Living it does. Becky has lived it. So as you listen today, and you find yourself with questions like, do I agree? Is this what I believe? I invite you today to ask instead, what would it mean for me to choose who I am on purpose? Becky, thank you for giving us your time, your lived experience, your love, and your wisdom. And we're in your hands.
Wow, thank you. Just give me chills. I know some of you, I have known some of you personally for a long time, and I have chills down my legs. I have to tell you something dear is that I was asked by my daughter to go pick up her 2-year-old from daycare one time in LA. This is several years ago. He just turned 11. And I was like nervous because like, oh my God, I'm going to drive in LA with this precious cargo, in the back seat. And here you have to, I had those fancy car seats and you got to make sure it's all hooked up and whatever, And so then they told you can go to the fire station and they'll make sure you've got your car seats. I mean, it was that important. So now I go to pick him up and I get him all, buckled in the back seat. Now I'm going to drive in LA, LA traffic and all that. And so I said, calling all angels. And he said, and he calls me Yaya. He said, Yaya, they're already here. He was like 2 years old. And the next time, maybe a couple weeks later, I was visiting again and picked him up again. And I said it again, calling all angels, because I mean it. I said, calling all angels. And he said, they're not coming today. I said, whoa, why? We're in the car. He said, because they needed a day off. So just before we opened, I said, calling all angels. So, and I just got this feeling there's a lot of energy in this space, in my space. And welcome to my studio. This is where I create a lot of things, including my art, my painting. And so I just thank you for inviting me to speak. I was just saying when before you all came on, that when I first met with Steve, and I'll tell you that story, the simple version of that was that I think that we don't know what we don't know, right? And I had never heard of Steve, but I had to have knee surgery, and a friend of mine came. She said, "I insist that I'm coming to help you," and I'm so self-sufficient. I said, "No, you don't know." She said, "I'm coming to help you," and she showed up from Salt Lake City. I live in a suburb of San Diego, California. And she said, and she showed up with this black book, and she said, "Oh, while I'm here, I'm gonna write a thing, while you're taking naps and stuff. I'm gonna write a thing that is like, they call it a document or something. I'm gonna write one for me and one for my husband, and then one for our marriage." I went, all right, whatever, And she said, "Well, you might want to do it with me, if you want." And so I ordered a book from Amazon, and it came the next day. And I started reading it, and there was one story, and many stories in there, but the one story in there that really got to me, because I was just reading, like, I thought it was going to be like the meat and potatoes of what this man, what are his philosophies and everything. But it was story, and so I was thumbing through the stories, and this one story caught me, and it actually made me weep. And it was the story about a man who had decided that his life wasn't worth living any longer. And so he decided that he had an insurance policy, and he had known Steve, but he hadn't seen Steve in a really long time. And I think he'd moved since he'd seen Steve, so his address was different. But this gives me chills. This man had walked out of his home and gotten into a swimming pool, and he was seriously considering ending his life. And his wife came out the back door and she said, "You have a visitor." And Steve Hardison showed up at this man's home. Didn't know where he just suddenly showed up there. And he spent the day with that man, and I just couldn't imagine someone like that, intuiting that this man was in crisis and showing up at his home. And it made me cry because I said to my friend Janae, I said, "Who is this guy? Like, I would love to talk to him." She said, "Well, I know someone who knows him. Maybe I can figure that out." And she did. And that woman was Rebecca Holt. Ruby is what I call her. And that's how I figured out that. So I did, I went to Steve, and Steve said to me, sharing this with Wayne and Wolfgang, he said, I don't know about working with you. He said, you could be a tough one because you know so much, so much about all the stuff that you've done and stuff. I don't know if you're going to want to work with me or not. And so that's kind of the beginning of that. So the background of all of this, and the reason why I like a year ago when you guys asked me if I would do this thing this morning, it is not only about the document, but I think the document has so much in it because words are spells. It's sort of, now that we know AI and stuff, your words are like a prompt, and when I created my document, I put a lot of I called it a blood, sweat, and tears thing to do with you to create this document, because it's not like you just put some affirmations down on paper. But I think that the way that Steve had me go through it was, he's sitting across from me, and for me to have to be that gut level honesty, of like, okay, well, what do I tell him and what do I not tell him, and what do I reveal and not reveal? And when he told me what the document process was, I was like, oh, hell no, I don't, how am I going to do that and sit there in front of him, and tell him all these things. And I want to say that because of everything going on in the world right now, it is a blessing to know that, I'll speak for myself, but I'm going to speak for all of you. I don't have any skeletons in my closet. Thank you, God. We live when you live deliberately and choose to live a beautiful life, to me, that includes everything, then, that total honesty with yourself and with others is so vital. I mean, I know that's a given, but not really, because we're looking at everything bubbling to the surface right now we're all having to look at. I mean, it's unavoidable to know there's so much going on in the world. So there could not be a more important time for me to make it my absolute deliberate practice. And my morning practice is to go sit in the other room in my chair in my bedroom, where I've got all my my stuff, and I do my heart math while I read through my document. And I want to tell you another story of why this is so important. Some of you heard it that were at the recent event in Arizona, but on a July 4th weekend long ago, me and a whole bunch of people from Hollywood. I just saw Pat Riley on television the other night. It was Pat and Chris Riley, and a lot of fancy people, all the Hollywood folks. And so we were going on a trip down the Grand Canyon, the rapids of the Grand Canyon. And there was some big ones, like level 5 rapids. I think it was called Lava Falls and stuff like that. So we're all hiking down in 117 degree heat down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And everybody had to repack all their luggage, that nobody had a personal assistant there. It was like everybody had to repack everything into these rubber bags, and getting grouchy and stuff. And so one of the river guides came up to us and he said, okay, this is the most important thing I want to tell you. And I want you to really listen up. Notice how fast this river is going. Here's the thing. There's like a 99% chance at some point going down this river that you're going to fall out of the boat. He got our attention. He said, and if you do fall out of the boat, if you'll notice all these big rocks that there are, and so your first job is not to get your head bashed in by a rock. Second thing is that you're going to need to make your way to the riverbank and climb out, and we will pull over as soon as we can downstream, but it is your job to participate in your own rescue. And that stuck with me. Oh my goodness, I've used that so much. And I think that this is a time, I mean, it's always a time, but I think this is a time for us to participate in our own rescue. And part of that for me is my document and the way I do it, which is just my own way that I do it. And also, I think that in alignment with that, we are energetic beings. And the phone call I had with Steve this week, he called me and we talked about quantum physics. I didn't even know he was into quantum physics. And it was such a fun conversation to have. And I'm reminded of the Heisenberg principle. Do any of you guys know about that? The Heisenberg principle was an experiment. I'll shorten the story so that I just get to the point. But the story was that there were scientists observing how it was an electron, or I think, or an atom or something. Anyway, there was a slit in the wall. They set up the experiment perfectly so that it could only. So they wanted to split this thing through and have it go through this slit in the wall, and the result kept changing. So the scientists were confused, like, why is that? Why does that keep changing? And they realized, short version of the story, is that it was the observer. It's like who was watching it had an effect on the outcome. The observer changes the outcome. And I have loved that. I have loved that experience, knowing that, because for me, I'm observing my own life and I am in charge of my own life. And that is how I participate in my own rescue, is catch myself if I have a thought that is not in alignment. That's even something I just read about what happens in your brain when you are the observer of your thoughts, and you can stop yourself midstream of a thought that doesn't serve you, or in the middle of a conversation, like last night at dinner with these women. The whole subject of all of the stuff that's been revealed in this last couple of weeks came up, and I didn't want to just sit there and talk about all of that, and I asked if we could switch up the conversation, because it's just such a predominant conversation right now. But what that is for me is your frequency is your currency. You think about that for a second. Your frequency, the thoughts you think are powerful, because that is your agency, that is your currency to get through life. And when this has been a year for me, honestly, and I am so grateful about this past year. And I know that it has been a year. It was predicted a long time ago that this was going to be a fracture for humanity to choose a path. And I have chosen my path, but that requires us to be, I think Gandhi said, I don't permit anyone to walk through my mind with dirty feet. That's a good one, right? So as I move into the idea about the document and why that was so important to me, I want to talk a little bit about what it even took for us to even be here. And those of you who were a year ago in Arizona, and when I was speaking a little bit about, it was called The Power of Forgiveness, Judy asked me to speak, and I told her what I want to talk about. She said, can we call it The Power of Forgiveness? I went, okay, because it really is like step number 2 of the document is forgiving yourself for judging yourself. But I want to take it back a few steps, because this is what Steve and I were talking about the other day. This planet, if it were 1 degree different from the other planets, we'd be banging into each other. I mean, there is such an intention about creation that whatever you want to call it, source of all that is, God. I call it all that all the time. I call it Him. But the idea that we are even here in this solar system when there are 2 trillion solar systems, and here we are in this one, and and anything that could be different, we wouldn't even be here. And then we moved into, in that conversation I had on stage about the idea of how you are even conceived, and that was an intention, a divine intention. So I say all that because the mathematics of us being here, and since everything is math, and I've learned a lot about that this year, like sacred geometry, and I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I embody sacred geometry? So I've been studying that this year and realizing, check this out. The heart that's in your chest, this beating miracle that's in your chest, when they take that heart, when it was observed that a heart outside the chest can be unrolled like a cinnamon roll or something, it's a spiral, and it rolls back into a spiral. And the muscles in your heart, these muscles are going this way, and these muscles are going this way, and it all makes this amazing heart. And within our hearts is a vortex, and the vortex within our heart is keeping our blood going through our arteries and veins all the way down to your feet, and that's how it comes back up. Because I have history in medicine, and I love all of that. Just to think the magic that's happening within us right now is part of day 22 is when your heart started to beat. That's when you decided to stay and be a human. Is that not the most amazing thing? I mean, that you made the decision, co-created, to come when you did, to arrive exactly when you did. And that part of that is what I used to create my document. So when I started with the 3-step process, and it wasn't I have to say that when Steve first started talking to me about I want you to write down all your unuseful listening, all the things, and he had me like name a couple people. He think of someone that used to say things to you and that wasn't hard for me, and I mean that was a difficult thing for me. And then to start thinking of all the things that I listened to, all the things that I had, he said, write it down. I want you to write it down and just keep writing down all of these things. And I saw him every 2 weeks, so 2 weeks worth of me really thinking about what has created the way I believe and the places where I'm stuck in my life. And there were a lot of them that shocked me. And I found those pieces of paper the other day, interestingly enough, right? Because here we are together. And so I can, as I go through some of the things in my document, I don't want to just read my document to you or recite it, because I want to tell you where some of that came from, because it's very personal. But it's not that I'm the only one that feels or felt like I felt. And to really look at some of that stuff and be deliberate about what the next step is. And so, having read parts of the book when I met Steve, hadn't read the whole book, nor had I read it in the way that you're supposed to read it. I just got the book and started reading it. And as I started doing the process, I texted him and I said, thank God that I'd read the book, because this is really rough. I didn't, and I'm glad I read it so that I can skip ahead. And he got a hold of me and he said, you're breaking our commitment. Like a father saying that, like, oh my God, you blew it. You didn't do what I told you to do, because he wanted me to stay in that space of really digging deep into what was holding me back. And what was holding me back was the fear of telling people. And that's why I'm going to leave this open for a Q&A. Anything you want me to talk about, answer your questions, I'm happy to do that. Because it's been a rough ride for me for a couple of decades and before that. So, and not all the time, but just like we are human. So step one was for me to go back and look at all those unuseful things that I was living my life, and I can share some of those with you. And then the middle part was forgiving yourself, and forgiving yourself for judging yourself that you could possibly have been so inadequate. But to me, what it meant was like the what it took for me to even be here alive on this planet, the act of conception, like the I showed this on a video, but like that one specific egg, since there's so many that women are born with, but that very one, and then all of those sperms that are coming, take a deep breath, all those sperms that are coming out, only one is allowed in, but there's a protective covering over that the egg has, that it only opens to the right sperm, and then it closes again. And that's it. That's it. And then it starts separating and doing, all of the magic that happens with cells dividing. And then at day 22, before there's even an organ, any other organ, before there's a lung, before there's anything, your heart starts to beat. And that's day 22. And I'll tell you another story before I start on the document part, is that there was a show at La Jolla Playhouse recently, and I'm on the board of La Jolla Playhouse, which is the leading regional theater for live theater in the country. And recently they had a show called Heart. And the story was about 24 hours in a heart transplant story. And it was about a young boy who had had irreversible brain damage from a car accident. He had been a surfer, and his parents had to come and make that decision to let him be a donor. But it was so difficult for them because there's their son lying there, and he's on life support, but he looks fine, except that he isn't fine. And in the show was so beautiful, and oh my gosh, it touched me. I cried through the whole thing. I saw it twice, cried through the whole thing. Everybody in the audience was in the same place. It was so moving. But at one point in the show, the doctor came in and was speaking to the woman who was going to be the recipient. She was a 50-year-old woman, had already made her peace with leaving the planet. She didn't think that she would ever get a heart because they're really hard to come by. And the doctor came in and he said, "I want to ask you a question. After we remove your heart that you've been living with all these years, and before we put your new heart in, I want to ask you, would you like for us to save it so that after you're out of recovery and all that, you could hold your heart in your hands and thank your heart for the life that you've lived so far?" Oh my gosh, that just got to me somehow, that we walk through life forgetting how special we are, how important it was that we're even here in the first place. So for me, that's the forgiveness part, is forgiving myself for forgetting, for forgetting the blessing that I am unto myself and unto my God, that I'm even here. So that's why the document is so important to me, because I use it daily. I have it on paper because I hold it while I'm doing my breathing, and in my deep breathing in, deep breathing out, and in order to get into the zone, which Carrie, in order to get into that zone that for heart math, into coherence, they call it. It's so that your EEG and EKG are in alignment, because our brains are going, our heart's going, and this one's got a different energy and a wavelength that's measurable than this one has. And to get those in alignment so that they're moving together, I practice heart math, and I can tell you more about that if you guys want. You can send me your best email, and I'll send you information. So that's the beginning of how I created my document. And I'm going to tell you my whole document, which I also can send to you. But the first thing says, "I am the universe." And I said to Steve, like, help me understand that. Because he was telling me that's in his, first thing in his. So I don't understand that. Like, how do you say "I am the universe"? And now it's funny for me to even think that I wouldn't know that. And what that is to me is that I am made of everything. Is that tree outside and that little hummingbird out there and me. We're all made of the same stardust. We're all made by the same creator. So my document starts with, I am the universe. I belong here. And I don't know if you can read it in back of me, but I have a neon sign that I had made that says we belong to one another. And another one downstairs that says you belong here. And that came from for me because after my divorce, it was such a difficult time for me. And I used to have dreams. My son was telling me about a dream he had just yesterday. And I said, you know what? I used to have this dream that I would go to the seminar room and be locked out, like nobody would let me in. And I mean, I have felt different. That was part of it. But also, I've just been different my whole life. And I celebrate that now because I'm me, you know, and I'm happy to be different. Isn't that an amazing feeling to know that you are not like the rest of everybody, that I've just always been different. I used to sit at the window and looking at the stars when I was a little girl and say, like, come back. I don't think I belong here. I'm too different from everyone. So I celebrate that now. Also, I am one of a kind. We all are. I'm made of God, and I create magic in every area of my life. And when I'm in my state of doing that in the morning, I feel it. I don't just go through these lists. And another thing that I have loved is there's a book called The Way of Mastery, which I've read parts of, but there's another one that I digested so much. There's so much ink on the pages of my margins that the book probably weighs more than it used to because of all my notes. But it's called The Book of Mastery by Paul Selig. And that book has served me and still does serve me because there are 3 phrases in that book that I use while I'm going through my document that I think are essential. And one is, I know who I am in truth. And that means I am the universe. I know I am part of everything and everyone is part of me, that I know who I am. The who is the ultimate. I know what I am in truth is that I am here being a human, that I have the blessing of being born here at this time, at this exact moment, in this exact place, and that I am that. And the third phrase is, I know how I serve in truth. And that's where the document comes in. Because I say those things, and I know that that different ones relate to me in a different way as I go through my document. I also say I'm created as, because it reminds me of everything I just said. It's like I'm created here now, exactly like this. My life is a temple for my soul's growth. And my heart is open wide. And that's how I serve in truth. I'm created as incredibly unique and incredibly beautiful. That one came because I've always, as I said, I've always felt different. But Steve made me put the incredibly beautiful part in there because one of the things in my scary list was like, oh my gosh, will anybody ever want me again? I'm getting old. I'm this age. And he said, Becky, you're incredibly beautiful. Write that down. So it's grown on me. I'm created as a curator of epiphanies, a master of curiosity, and an expert at reciprocity. And when I say that, I know that that's like, if I'm not doing something, this reminds me, like, hold on a minute, is that who you're being and what you're doing, how you're acting? And it's, so I think I'm being redundant by saying how well these things serve me. I'm created as divinely intuitive, inspiring, and present with everyone. I'm created as capable, and this was a big one. This one came from Karan Rai. And in one of my first meetings with Steve, he said, there's someone I want you to meet because he put music to his document. I'm going to have you guys get in touch and he can tell you what to do to that. That actually never happened. We did get in touch. But the thing that, so the first time I talked to Karan, I told him, he said, well, tell me your document. So I did. And then I said, well, okay, your turn. Tell me yours. And so he told me his, and I went and borrowed that phrase from him. I am created as capable, confident, brilliant, and I accomplished the improbable and the impossible with ease. And that has served me so much in this past year. I needed to create some impossible and improbable things, and I have. But I look at that and realize, wait a minute, I was created as that way. How could you not be? Um, you guys are so quiet. I think everybody's muted, so I'm feeling good. The universe inspires greatness within me. I mean, when you think about 2 trillion galaxies, a whole galaxy with their own star, sun, and all whatever is happening out there, which I think is a lot more than we know, and hopefully we will know. The universe has created greatness within me. I walk on the beach sometimes, like a lot of times, and I say my document to myself when I'm walking on the beach. And it occurred to me the other day, oh my God, Becky, you're walking on the edge of a continent. Just that kind of realization of the greatness of the universe. I'm an intrepid explorer of life and the beneficiary of the majesty of my creator. I mean, that one gets me every time. I was, for example, as I was walking on the beach the other day, and I was thinking about like the abundance of water, and I'm studying Veda Austin and some of her amazing work around water, which I love that topic. She did a great podcast, by the way, with Robert Edward Grant recently, talking about water as consciousness. So while I was looking at the water and thinking of that, and we have a riptide here, so when you're just like looking at the water coming in on the beach, it's coming from all these different directions. And I was just noticing the geometry that was creating in the sand, all these beautiful patterns, and just thinking about it. And I walked 2 steps further and there's a sand dollar because I'm thinking about abundance. And all of a sudden, thank you, God, like puts a little sand dollar in my past. And on the sand dollar is etched by God, the flower of life. You can't write this stuff, it's like, but being aware and open to all of this is because I start my day this way. I'm a force of nature, and my imagination creates footsteps for others in my wake. And that's like a directive for me. And I have loved that. I feel the magic in that. Because I have a big imagination, to paint, and to what I select that goes in the painting. And I hope that leaves footsteps for other people in my wake. And then this one is so huge for me. I'm here bearing witness to shining in and shining as the glory of God. Think about that one. That looking at that water on the beach is bearing witness to, but then I'm also shining in that, and as that is, I am the universe. I am, oh my goodness, so powerful for me. And also I'm a scuba diver, and I've done so many amazing kinds of things, had the blessing of doing a lot of those kinds of things in my life. So, I mean, scuba diving is where I fell in love with octopuses because, I felt like, as a good scuba diver, you always, if you find something and they're so shy, I think an animal only wants you to see it if it gets to choose if it's going to be seen or not, right? And so, as a good scuba diver, manners, you invite other people over if you see something like I found something right here. And so I just had an experience where the man who owns the dive shop here in San Diego, his name is Werner Kern, and he's an amazing diver, of course. And so I called him over, and he put his hand down on the sand, and he can go forever without going through a tank of air. And all of a sudden, this one little tentacle came out and just like wrapped around his hand. And I will never forget that moment. And I've had the benefit of being able to do that at the aquarium here, where they've let me go back of the house, and I feel like I'm ready for another visit with another octopus. But that's the intrepid explorer of life. stuff. And then right now, I realized there was something important. I was always like thinking about the future, the past, the future, like we do. And so I put this in my document on purpose, that this is the part where I appreciate this moment with all of you before this becomes a memory. And that reminds me to stay present in the moment. And then after that, this one was because I was worried about money. I was worried about, do I need to move? I was worried about, like, oh my gosh, things happened that I had no control over. And that, I mean, we have control over the things. I know that we're creating our reality, but in that moment, I felt like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? And so I wrote this thing in my document, and now it's taken on a whole different flavor for me. Because at the beginning, I said, I am wonderment and certainty in the yet unknown. That was like scripture for me to read that, and that I am that I'm wonderment and certainty. And then that has changed now for me into that wonderment is like curiosity about the unknown. Because remember, your frequency is your currency. So if your frequency is fear and worry, and I knew that I couldn't go much longer doing that, or I would really create worse havoc in my life. So the wonderment and certainty in the yet unknown for me now is like joyous curiosity, and like, I just wonder what's gonna happen, in my life, and how is that gonna be? How are we doing on time? Okay. I just want to make sure that I allow time for you guys to ask me anything you want to ask me. And then this one was beautiful too, and I changed this one along the way. I am the joyful steward of spectacular, fulfilling financial abundance. It moves through me not only as possessions, but as orchestration. I love that. As orchestration for the delight, the fulfillment, and the freedom of many, many others, including myself. That one is a big one. And to be a joyful steward of vast financial abundance that moves through you. And it started to happen for me in that way. It's like not just money, but joy and kindness. But this one was about money, and that really has helped me in amazing ways. Also, ideas, which I've created, I'll talk about before I stop. My art is divinely inspired and is a transmission from God. And I never wanted to be an artist. It wasn't my idea to be an artist. I just happened to go to a restaurant where a former attorney of mine who had retired, I said, like, what are you doing these days? She said, I'm taking piano lessons, Spanish lessons, art class. You should come to me with something. So there's an art class tomorrow. Why don't you come? So I did. And and this is like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And the first art class was literally taking a pencil and a piece of paper and try this when you have time. For those of you who say I'm not creative, you're created. So of course you're creative. But they said, okay, put a dot here with your pencil, and then put a dot over here on the other side of the paper with your pencil. Now I want you to take that pencil, put it at the beginning, but only look at where that other dot is. Okay, now move your hand to that dot. And I drew a straight line, a perfect straight line. So it's like hand coordination, where you look is where you're going. I don't know if she meant all those things to be a part of the lesson, but it was like step one of becoming an artist. So that was something that I've pursued over time, because there's another phrase I learned from my daughter, who was in an acting class. She now is an acting teacher, but she was told, like, you must dare to suck. You guys dare to suck, because you're not going to be good at something for a while. And most people quit before they're good at something. So you've got to dare to suck. So I did. And here now I'm an artist. I'm devoted to the care of my temple. And I stand inside a living miracle. That one has been a really important one for me, because when I've like, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to, oh my God, things like, hold on a minute, Becky, you live inside this miraculous creation. And I love learning about it. There's so many things about it. Anatomy and biology are my favorites. There's anatomy and biology in all my paintings because I love that. No one is worthy of my judgment, and everyone is worthy of my love. Has been helpful for me, especially recently. I am a beacon of light and love and possibility. I'm created that way. And I want to go back to something before I say any more of these, is that I should have said this at the beginning, but I love the mathematics of astrology. And so before I did this final step of my document of like writing down what the good news is after all the bad news, all the forgiveness, and then doing your document, I remembered like a lot of the things that I'd been told by a couple of favorite astrologers that know me, and I've known them for years and years. And what I arrived with was so, oh my gosh, so that's incorporated in my document. I arrived equipped with not just the DNA from my family, but I arrived equipped with curiosity. I arrived equipped with kind of a lot of rebel, kind of, like I can have like a sudden thought and then want to go take advantage of that sudden thought, that capable, confident thing, the improbable and the impossible with ease. I don't. Things to me don't seem impossible until I try them. There's so much of my document that got created with that in mind of what I arrived with. Human design is another one. Also, I love Joe Dispenza's work. It's just been really powerful for me to know all of the. I love his work. It had a powerful influence on me. And by the way, they use heart math a lot. After I said I am a beacon of light and love and possibility, Steve asked me to put this next phrase in, I am love itself, which I think we all are. We all are love itself. I am grace upon grace, and my commitment and my consistency compound. Think about that for a second. The compounding interest, like if you invest a penny today and then it builds and builds and builds, it can build into this huge thing. Or exercise. In a trainer I had a little rubber bracelet, those ones on, it said consistency compounds. And I thought about that as everything that we do, it compounds. If we can have that. So I love saying that every day. I'm a nurturer of humanity, and that's part of how I came onto the planet. I'm a Cancer, Virgo rising, Aquarian moon, and all. I don't know a lot about all that stuff. I know about my own, but that part, like I'm emotional. I'm available emotionally, and so anyway, I am a nurturer of humanity. And then this one has been really fun for me because Steve and I talked a lot about what it would take to be in a relationship, and a new relationship, because I was, gun shy. And so he had me put something in my document, and here it is. It's like, I am the divine intelligence, infinite intelligence and pure love that has already co-created my true beloved, including the perfect timing of our union. And I added something onto that also, because that didn't feel like enough. So I added that that this spiritually intimate relationship is filled with joy and love and trust and abundance and generosity and expansion and curiosity. And I change a little bit as I go, but that's been important to me, to create exactly what would serve me to be in a relationship again. And then the last phrase in my document is that I am a lightning rod for miracles. And so the Uranian part of my chart, I have a lot of that, and it's like lightning rod stuff. And so I'm a lightning rod for miracles. So I feel like this gives me a blueprint for my days, and I'm grateful for that. And I want to say before I turn it over to you guys is that the smallest things that we can do for someone can have the greatest reward. and that's long lasting, and they may never know that. And there was a young woman who I met her at the age of 12, when she was 12. And she used to come to our events. Her mother would be on staff, and then as she got older, she wanted to come. And she, as she got older, she got back in touch with me a few years ago, and she's been on some Zoom calls with me and a group of other people. And I told her that I'm creating a podcast called Ageless Freedom. Ageless freedom, which I love the notion of that. Participating in your own rescue is the tagline. And it's a podcast that I've already started and will be launching it soon. And a Becky Robbins connected thing with it. And I told her that I was devoting that to her because she left her body in about 3 or 4 months ago. She was very ill for a very long time, but she would ask me, and then her sisters, as she got sicker and sicker, her sisters would ask me to leave messages that they could hold up to her ear to speak to her. And my document was so handy because I spoke it to her as if it were hers. And I was asked to write her eulogy, and I included some of that for her. And we just never know. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because you, Sundance, told me something that I will never forget, is that I had to have neurosurgery a little over a year ago because of a vaccination. I say this because it's the truth, a vaccination injury where a blood vessel was pushing on a nerve in my brain and causing like spasms in my face, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And finally it was time to go and do that. But Sundance, you told me that you chanted when you knew I was going to surgery, because I asked this environment. This community is like nothing ever, but I did ask this community to pray for me when and what at the time of my surgery. And I flew to New Jersey. It's the best guy I could find. He's going to be on my podcast. I'm so excited about that. But so to know that you had done that for me was extraordinarily meaningful. So thank you, Sundance. So let's open to anything you want to ask me. I can't see your hands, so I think, oh, there you go. Anybody? You know why I asked? Yes, please.
I want to stay in contact with you. What's the best way? Through Messenger?
Yes, that, or my email is Becky Robbins with the number 1 at Gmail.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you guys want to be in touch with me, and me to send things to you that I'm doing, please send me your best email. You can do it through Messenger or however you know that.
David, you're up.
Anyone else? You know, the first time I said I did a Q&A, I was terrified. It was because I was doing a trainer training, and it was long ago and far away. And then I got the message how someone held a sign up from the back of the room. Sorry, Tony's going to be 30 minutes late. And I was like, oh my God, I'm already on stage to introduce him. Like, okay. And just ask me anything. Ask me anything. But, and they did. They asked me everything. So it was good for me and good for them. So I'm happy to talk about anything that you would like to talk about. David's
hand is up. Come on up, David.
Thanks, Wayne. I didn't want to talk over Becky. I just wanted to say thank you. And I didn't want to be disrespectful, but when you were talking and said, you guys are so quiet, like I noticed that multiple times I had cheered like I was at a football game or something based on things you were saying. So if you want, next time in the future, be like, if you want that energy, that encouragement, if you want that loud every once in a while, like maybe say that, because I think many of us are happy to share that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Like, yeah. Yes, exactly that, Becky. So thank you.
What did you cheer about?
I mean, so many things. Just your journey. the way that you found language is this magic gift, but I think for so many human beings, it's that age-old thing about technology, about things in our life where they're a terrible master but a wonderful servant, and language is very much like that. And you have found some incredibly eloquent ways of stating, because we always forget too that words are not the thing, they are the signpost, they point to the thing. And so, but with some of the ways you phrased within your document, like that, just that cut through the layers of distraction, that cut through the layers of shield, that cut through the layers of just accumulated living and bullshit, and found like home in my heart. And those were the moments for me personally that I cheered the loudest, because
thank you.
it's just so wonderful to hear like one of my human sisters who's found her way and then is sharing this now, and then has done it enough that you have a comfortability and a confidence in it to show up the way you did today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Words
You're
are
so
powerful.
welcome. Yes,
Words
they are.
Powerful, powerful spells.
Preach. Okay. Thank you all.
And Becky, you're welcome to share your document in the Facebook group, especially in the document creation group. We appreciate that.
Andrea.
Whoa. I love you, Becky. Love you. I can't remember if we met in India or Arizona, but all I remember is every time I meet you, there's a miracle and something wonderful around you, and your frequency is everywhere. It is love, and I just want you to know what an impact you've made on all of us, and you are an angel. Just recently, your painting, which I think you called Angel, is that right? Yeah, was you donated it, and it was on the stage at the Butterfly Effect, the Ultimate Experience, for those of you that weren't there. And so it was up for raffle, and so I bid on it, or I wanted to win it, and I didn't, but I got in the front row, and I witnessed, talking about witnessing stuff, I witnessed this butterfly. Like, for those of you that haven't read it, The Butterfly Effect is a book by Andy Andrews, and you will have heard what the butterfly effect is. And this butterfly flew into the jar of Becky Robbins' angel print. It flew in and out, and like it was really quick, but I was like so gobsmacked. I was like, that's a butterfly. My eyes aren't playing tricks on me. I'm in the front row for the first time, and because of Becky, actually. Thank you, Becky. Becky got me into she bumped me up into the upgrade section because I wanted to hear her talk. And so thanks, Becky, again. And I got to witness this butterfly, which was, I'm really sure, was a blessing and was spirit and was divine. And anyways, there's so many miracles associated with that angel print. It was given to Chris Chitty. Becky gave it to Chris, and he opened it up in front of me. And anyways, there are lots of miracles, and I just want you to know, Becky, that you are a lightning rod of miracles. You are love. And yeah, if you get a chance to be with Becky again, please reach out to her. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrea. Oh my gosh, Carrie, hi.
Hi, my love. I've known Becky since 1991, and our mutual friend Clay Kelly and I have had a many years long argument over which one of us is the president of your fan club. And I'd heard your document before. I had heard a couple of the stories before, but I was just mesmerized. I love Andrea's word, gobsmacked. The whole entire time you were talking, the stories landed like it was the first time I heard it. You're just such a gifted storyteller. And my question is, can you tell us more about your podcast, your intention for it? Maybe tease us with a couple of your guests and when it's gonna start.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you just said. I appreciate you so much. I feel like I'm at the beginning of the beginning. Like, isn't that an amazing feeling? Like at this time of my life that most people are like winding down, and I don't know what people do, not me, so I don't know. But anyway, I'm calling it ageless freedom. And I love that because I think that age is something that is a filter through which we identify ourselves or others identify us. And I think that if we could have freedom, that kind of freedom and that kind of like a child kind of thing, like, yeah, they're here already, kind of thing. And so the people originally and still, it's talking to people from all over the world that are the experts and the very best I can find in the field of health and longevity and wellness. It's not anti anything because I'm not an anti girl. It's of like those topics. And then there's so many topics under them. For example, I mentioned the show The Heart that I saw. That doctor is here in San Diego, who is a heart-lung transplant, one of the best in the world, surgeon. And he will be on my podcast talking about that because as the crew were working on the show, all the actors, they were allowed to come. He brought them into the hospital so they could see the actual surgical suite and the emergency room because part of the script of the show took place there. So that was them. And then I'll tell you this other story, Carrie, is that the guy, oh my goodness, the show is so amazing. But all of the people, there were like 25 people that are on the heart-lung transplant team. Like when you walk into surgery, imagine that. When I went into my brain surgery thing, that room was full of so many people. I thought, oh my God, and so much equipment. But anyway, all those people that were all the professionals, they all came to watch the show. And they wanted to have a little meet and greet afterwards with a couple of the actors for like 15 minutes. And it went on for like an hour because they said that when they walk into surgery, all they see is like a whole draped situation. And just like this one little place where there's no drape, place where they're going to do the surgery, they didn't see the person. So they realized, like, I mean, they knew they're, but the disassociation from not being able to see this is a real human with a story, two humans, this human this heart's being removed, who lived a beautiful life and now it's done, to this woman who's kind of resurrected into a whole new version of life with a different person's heart. So he's on my podcast, and my surgeon said yes, he would be happy to be on my podcast. And then there's so many others that I've met along the way that are in a part, like a friend of mine, her son is a nonverbal autistic kid who's like 32 or 3 years old. He's going to be on the telepathic tapes, or she is. And I've been friends for a long, long time. So like the whole thing about telepathy, and I'd love to have Vida Austin on my podcast. So it'll be launched soon. I've already done a couple of podcasts that are in the can, and we're working on it. It's going to be here in my home. It's my studio. So my living room is being transformed into that I can, put it away, but bring it out because it's peaceful, beautiful environment there. So I'm very excited. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Becky. The coaching
Becky,
question, given all that, what do you want to create? I don't dare ask. You're creating so much. I really want to thank you for being here.
I am creating so much.
It's beautiful to have you here, and lovingly to be in your presence. I want to leave time to wrap up and turn it over to Wolfgang to let us know what's coming up next. Wolfgang?
Yeah, thank you. Wow, for me that was a meditation to listen to you, Becky, and I heard your document, and just to have this beautiful, not explanation, insight about how what it means. There was a beautiful energy in the room. So thank you very much for saying yes. Thank you for coming. I have a suggestion. I suppose almost everybody would like to have your document. Is there a possibility that you could post it in TOC? Because that's also a space where everybody can just access it. And everybody who is here is welcome to join the Ultimate Coach Facebook group, where is people like Becky and receiving this love and support in moments when we need. It's a very special place. So if you don't know about the Ultimate Coach Facebook group, reach out to the person who invited you to be here today. This person certainly has a connection to the Ultimate Coach. And we have this conversation every month, every last Thursday of each month. And next month, Alok will be with us. Next month is a little bit special because US will have time change beginning of March. Europe will have time change end of March. And this session is hooked on European time because it's my Zoom call and I'm in Europe. So the US will have next month an hour later. There is a document where is described the times and all the people who will speak. After Alok will be Tom Lipinski. And next to it is literally the times in each time zone. So please have a look at these times so you are not too late. Otherwise you miss the call. So next month is 1 hour later for the US, but Arizona, because you don't have time zone change. So US is a little bit messed up because of Hawaii and Arizona. There is no time zone shift. Everybody else has one. And Europe will change at the end. So the time stand in this, it's posted every couple of days. So we repost it so everybody gets informed. So feel free to come back also next month. And wow, thank you so much for coming as our guest. Becky, for being here as our keynote speaker today. It was remarkable. And Wayne, a big acknowledgement to Wayne. He cares about that the recording will be available on the Ultimate Coach YouTube channel. So all the recordings are available there. And I want to acknowledge Amy Sue, and John, and Renate, and Wayne, Ralph, who is not with us. These guys create all the conversations. They speak to Becky and Alok, and everyone has a personal conversation to invite and to inform actually how it works, to take care that everybody's really comfortable. So thank you very much for everything you do ongoing, for the document creation group, for this conversation. And for me, it was a blessing to listen today. I'm inspired to actually change my document approach a bit, because Steve Hardison is not working as a coach anymore. So literally Becky, Alok, Eric, everyone who worked about the document with Steve, your experience is bringing an energy to everyone how we could go about. So this conversation is an ongoing conversation to have, to stay tuned, to get new ideas. And Becky, your experience and your way how to share it today was certainly very special.
Oh, thank you so much. And on my own personal Facebook page, I'll be putting more and more stuff out that I'm working on. That's all in alignment with, of course, since this is my life you know, what we're doing now. And you know how essential we all are right now in the world, truly. Every single one of us right now are so essential because, you know, in the heart math thing, when you're in coherence, it's like you're in the middle of a toric field, right? That's like you're standing in the middle of a donut shaped field of energy, and it's around you. And the more in alignment you are with who you are and how you're being, the wider your circle of energy is, and it's intersecting with others all the time. So never been a more important time for us to be in our own coherent state of that, so that then, you know, you don't have to say anything. You just walk around and make the world a better place. And then when you do say something, it's powerful. So thank you so much for the time you guys all gave me, and I'm very, very grateful. And please stay in touch with me.
Thank you for coming. I love you.
Becky.
I love you.